A lot of our clients will stop right there. They won't go any further in engaging their in-country native speakers in the translation process. However, if you think you need to take that to the next step, then you're going to want to exercise a lot of care in selecting the individual reviewers that you're going to be using. You're going to want to look carefully at what their qualifications are, what standards you're going to expect them to adhere to, what they're going to do, and the timeline that you're going to give them to do it, because time is always a big factor when it comes to translations. There's a lot of tactics that you can employ to manage the review process, and this is why we encourage you to let your vendor know up front that you're going to be utilizing reviewers. What you want to do is limit any input that's going to prolong your project or distract you from your core goal of getting the translation completed instead of adding value. We urge you to stick with a very small, consistent team of colleagues that you trust. You want them to be able to follow instructions, and you want them to respond to you promptly. Keep in mind that with languages, there's not necessarily any right or wrong answers. So by staying with a consistent small team, you can avoid situations where you're changing wording this time to suit one reviewer's preferences and then changing it back on the next project to please a different reviewer. Obviously, the reviewers have to be able to understand what it is you're trying to communicate, and they should understand how your company speaks about your products and your services and all the jargon that you use to do so. Should be someone with excellent written communication skills, and they do need to understand your source language. So it's not enough that they happen to be your Latin American sales rep. They may speak wonderful Spanish, but if they can't fully command English, then you're going to have difficulty in utilizing them as a translation reviewer. You also need to carefully define what it is you expect these folks to do, what your goals are for the project, and make sure that everyone's on the same page. We run into a lot of hiccups when the in-country reviewer either isn't reviewing the right things or they're not aligned with your goals. So for example, if you're putting together a marketing piece, branding, messaging, your corporate voice are very important. If you're putting together an engineering technical piece, precision and accuracy may be more important to you. So you want to make sure that the folks are on board with what you're trying to accomplish. Very often reviewers are not certain of the type and depth of feedback that they should be providing, and this can add a lot of time to the process and cause frustration on both sides. How you ask the reviewer to review the translation can make or break this process. Don't just ask somebody what they think of a translation. You're going to get a wide range of responses, and you're going to have certain reviewers who feel that it's their responsibility to redline your entire document. So if you're very specific, for example, ask somebody if the product descriptions in the translation match what they use in the field, or if your industry terms are being utilized correctly. The more specific you are, the more likely you are to limit the amount of feedback that you receive and also to receive more relevant feedback. Just like if you took your English file and routed around your office, some reviewers feel obligated to make changes just because you asked, and others are going to simply glance at the file and tell you that it looks okay. You don't want your project delayed, particularly multilingual projects. If there's one reviewer out there that takes a long time to respond, you don't want to have the whole project hung up waiting for that one reviewer. And you also want to avoid spending a lot of time arguing with somebody about whether or not their personal preferences are important changes to make to documentation. You know, you say potato, they say potato. It really isn't worth spending a lot of time debating that. So again, provide clear direction on exactly what it is that they should be doing. how much time you're giving them to provide that input, and exactly what you're looking for. You may even want to go a step further and make them work to provide you with changes. And by that I mean make them justify any changes that they want to make. Explain to me why your phrase or your wording is better than what the translator provided. And you may even want to go so far as to give them a spreadsheet, one column for them to insert the phrase or the words that they want changed, and another column for them to provide their recommended change, and a third column for them to provide their justification. Anything that you can do to make them really think about how important their changes are to your project. You want to keep the deadline short and require that the feedback be very specific. And again, your goal is to get only minimal input, but to be sure that your critical details are in fact checked. Let's give you an example. Let's say you're a mattress manufacturer. So you've got that tag that says, do not remove this tag under any circumstances. It's critical to ensure that the words do not are included in the translation. If they get omitted, then the message changes completely. What's not important is to spend a lot of time debating whether this is a tag or whether it should be called a label. That really doesn't make much difference in the meaning of your communication. So you're going to want to limit that type of discussion as much as possible. Most of the quote corrections that we receive to translations are actually user preferences. That is, they have no direct impact on the meaning of the communication. Remember, if you're engaging a professional translation services firm with an established quality process, not only has a translation already been completed by a qualified professional translator, in all likelihood, it's already been checked by a second professional translator. So the odds that it will be wrong are very small. So get only feedback that contributes to your goals without creating a lot of unnecessary activity that can totally derail your project schedule. Okay, so what can possibly go wrong? I've used this example here. Let's say that you're commissioned with getting a portrait for your corporate lobby. And you sit through a lot of meetings with top executives discussing exactly what it is that they would like to see. And now you're going to go out and you're going to commission someone to create a portrait for your lobby. You go out on Etsy and you find somebody who delivers this masterpiece. Then you start asking others what they think. However, those people that you reach out to don't have any idea of what your goals are or the direction that you've been given. They haven't sat in on any of the meetings. So what do you think the first comments you're going to receive are? They're going to complain that Mona Lisa's not smiling. Of course, that's not what you were going for. It can get even worse. As word gets out to others that you've commissioned this portrait for your lobby, people are going to have input based on all kinds of things. And a lot of that input's going to be really ludicrous. And I've purposely selected this example because we have experienced equally ridiculous situations when it comes to in-country reviews. And that's the reason I urge you to carefully manage this process and the input that you're going to receive. Otherwise, the masterpiece that you've created, whether it's your product manual, your brochure, your catalog, it may end up being a Pirates of the Caribbean Lisa.